I was asked to share my thoughts on 21st century dating. Dating 25 years into the 21st century and the perils and trials and tribulations that come with that. Luckily, I guess I count myself lucky pushing 50 and actually being in a relationship now, which I'm very grateful to be in. I count myself lucky that I don't have to deal with this. I feel just so bad for the youth, and admittedly, I don't know how old this gentleman is who asked me to share my thoughts on this subject, but I can only assume he's younger than me, and his thoughts on having to be women are becoming increasingly more and more picky, and having to be in the top 10% of maybe attractive and or successful men to actually have any chance with, I guess, any kind of quote unquote decent women. One thing, if there's one thing I know, having this channel for 10 years, although I definitely over the years have dipped in and out and haven't really contributed much, but what's really interesting about having this channel for now over 10 years or about 10 years is that even if I wasn't contributing or continuing to put out new videos and new thoughts, people were still over the years and one still watching my old thoughts. So I mean, even if I wasn't putting out new thoughts, my old thoughts were continuing to get views. And if there's one thing I realized over 10 years of having a channel, just sharing potentially not necessarily mainstream popular thinking, is that there's a lot of people out there in the world that agree with unpopular thinking, or agreed with my thoughts on whatever I happen to be bitching about in those videos I made 10 or 9 or 8 years ago or whatever. So I guess if there's I guess I have no experience, of course, with being if this guy's a teenager or 20 something or 30 something. I can't even imagine what that's like in this day and age. But all I can say is don't be frickin' my only advice would be, with my limited knowledge about this whole situation, is that I can't imagine that everyone, all girls slash women are like that. I mean, there's got to be decent freaking girls slash women that don't expect that kind of thing. And if you happen to find yourself on a dating site or something, my advice would be to just be real. I may have used dating sites in the past, and I may have just been I used them multiple times, and I may have been just like myself and just down to earth and just even complaining that I'm using the dating site. And oh man, I mean, so much of life is luck too, I mean, I can completely understand that, like, as the world continues to decline and society, continues to decline, I can totally see this guy's point, where it's just like what's happening, in my opinion, with media, from all forms, music, TV, movies, just all media, is that they just destroy. They continue as the decades go on to just destroy just, I guess, the decency, anything decent in humanity, and make everything about material, a physical appearance, materialism, money. There's this movie, or there used to be a phrase back in like the early '80s. If a bunch of guys were gathering on a Playboy or something, and let's just give you a little example. And they used to look at, a picture of a potentially, whether she was all natural or not all natural, certainly probably always airbrushed in that magazine. But there used to be a phrase back in the '80s, early '80s, where you're looking at some, bodacious babe who was completely nude in a magazine. God bless her mom and dad. And just to give you an idea of how bad things have gotten these days, it's God, if someone is looking at the picture of something similar or some video on a phone or a tablet or a computer, these days the sentiment would be God bless her surgeon. And I think that's a perfect example of what the hell's been going on in the 21st century. Is this slow moving away from the natural world and what's natural. I mean, definitely we've had breast augmentation for decades and decades, but it's getting really, really out of hand, where, I mean, there's girls that are in their 20s, when I found out that there's girls in their 20s getting plastic surgery and, work done on their face. And I mean, nose jobs is something that's been going on forever. But I mean, you take someone who might have been, good looking anyway, and it's like, oh no, I'm 29, or 28, I better get some work done. But this whole thing in culture, especially like hip hop culture, where it's all about, buying that ass, or buying them hips, or buying them lips, or buying, just surgically enhancing, quote unquote, enhancing women. And, this whole mentality has just become a part more and more, very slowly, over decades of popular culture. And kids, are born and grow up and are raised in this. So it's like inevitable that they're going to think that that's what's important. And I'm not trying to downplay this gentleman's concern and frustration over what's going on, but if I've learned anything from having this channel and reading the comments over the years, is that there's a whole bunch of people out there who feel just like us, or feel just like people who are lonely and alone. And all I can say is just I don't know I don't have a magic wand or anything, but I mean, the internet's a big place, I mean, possibly try. I don't know what this guy has tried in regards to finding a woman. Possibly, if he doesn't have a lot of social or social situations that he can become a part in real life, as it were. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people. I can't even imagine though what dating sites are like now, though. But there's got to be like some kind of decent dating site, or you try to find a niche in a dating site. I don't really know what my advice is. There's got to be some kind of goddamn solution. But I mean, if you're young, like if you're a teenager, or if you're in your 20s, I mean, I was there. I was fucking lonely in my mid 30s. One thing that I can say is just, I mean, one thing that my mom used to say when I was feeling bad in my late 20s, early 30s about being single is like, she's like, oh, well, my mom's dad didn't meet, her mom until he was 35. I mean, if you're a teenager or a 20-something and you're single, my advice would be maybe try to concentrate, if nothing is going good in the female category, just try to maybe concentrate on hobbies or interests and stuff, and maybe make the, seeking out a woman maybe a background kind of a thing, and maybe try to put more of your focus on maybe hobbies or interests, stuff that hopefully you've got hobbies or interests or something you enjoy. Put your focus on that, and put the woman thing in the background. I can remember after the relationship with my first girlfriend ended, I felt like, strangely, like the last thing I was interested in was women. And it was this really, really interesting feeling of, it was just like being 90 years old, or probably will happen before I'm 90. Well, I don't expect to live till 90, but it was like a complete loss of interest in, maybe not complete loss, but my interest in women or having anything to do with women just plummeted, and I concentrated on everything else I was interested in. And I know the thing is, it's easy for me to say, like, if you're a teenager or in your 20s, it's kind of like the prime reproductive era of someone's life, and it's like when you're most obsessed with women. So I understand the pain and frustration. You might be thinking, you want me to wait until I'm 35 or close to 40, and it's just like, well, it didn't really something something long-lasting in regards to a woman's situation didn't come into my life until I was in my late 30s. So we don't really have, another thing to understand is we don't really have control, as much as we'd like to think. We don't really have control of life. It's kind of like we're in a frickin' canoe or a kayak on just this ocean of waves and this and that and variable kind of weather patterns, and sometimes it gets calm enough where we can paddle where we want to go, and a lot of times it's so stormy that the frickin' water just pushes you wherever the hell it wants to. I can't even imagine how difficult it is these days with just everyone brainwashed into thinking that, if you're not all fucking, rich or muscular or handsome, you're just worthless. So all I can say is do your best. And like I say, my advice is maybe try to concentrate on other things. I know that it's easy for me to say, but I mean, I'd hate for someone to just drive themselves crazy trying to get a woman or something. And all I can say is just my experience having this channel for 10 years and all of the feedback on so many of my videos that I've gotten over that period of time. There's just so many like-minded people out there, and even if it's just joining some kind of a club with similar interests, with people with similar interests, or maybe even just people without similar interests, who the hell knows? The main point is, I guess, to try and keep trying and just keep trying. And if at first you don't succeed, just keep trying. If at a 100th time you don't succeed, you keep trying. But in the meantime, I think it's really, really important to have, hobbies, passions, and interests that can keep you, sane in the meantime. Because I know that, I was frickin' a teenager and 20-something as well. I know that those times of being that age, you're just like the maximum reproductive, juices are flowing, and you're just obsessed with women at that point. So I definitely know what it's like, but all you can do is what you can do, and I guess that's all you can do. I hope that helped some, may have not helped at all, but that's pretty much, I guess, all I can really think of in regards to my thoughts about it. I hate to say this, but I hate to say this, especially if you're a teenager or 20-something, but God damn, I'm maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm sure lucky that I'm not a teenager or 20-something now, because I can't even imagine what the hell things are like in that arena, or any social arena, or any kind of arena, trying to find a job. Or I don't want to get you more depressed, but at the end of the day, all we can do is our best, and if it's meant to be, I guess it'll happen. You probably probably click off this video more. Hopefully, you won't be more frustrated than you were before you started listening to it. But I guess that's all I can pretty much suggest. So thank you very much for listening, and I guess we'll catch you on the next one.